I am Marcho Torres from Bet12 1B. My topic is all about Justice as Fairness by John Rawls. So, many consider John Rawls the most important political philosopher of the 20th century. He took an old idea, thought of a fresh way of using it, and came up with principles for a just society. John Rawls was born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1921. His father, a corporate lawyer, supported President Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal. His mother was a women's rights activist. The second of five sons, Rawls tragically contracted and passed on infectious disease to two of his brothers who died from them. During the 1960s, he mainly concentrated on writing a theory of justice published in 1971. This complex work attempted to develop standards or principles of social justice that could apply to real societies. So what is justice as fairness by John Rawls? Rawls called this concept of social justice or justice as fairness. It consists of two principles. Since he first published a theory of justice, he changed the wording of these principles several times. He published last version in 2001. So the first principle of social justice concerns political institutions. Each person has the same and indivisible or permanent claim to a fully adequate scheme of equal basic liberties, which scheme is compatible with the same scheme of liberties for all. This principle means that everyone has the same basic liberties, which can never be taken away. Rawls included most of the liberties in the U.S. Bill of Rights, such as freedom of speech and due to process of law. He also added some liberties from the broader area of human rights like freedom of travel. Rawls agreed that basic liberties could be limited, but only for the sake of liberty, thus curbing the liberties of an intolerant group that intended to harm the liberties of others may be justified. The second principle of social justice concerns social and economic institutions. Social and economic inequalities are to satisfy two conditions. First, they are to be attached to offices and positions open to all under conditions of fair equality of opportunity, and second, they are to be to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged members of society, or the difference principle. This second principle focused on equality. Rawls realized that a society could not avoid inequalities among its people. Inequalities result from such things as one's inherited characteristics, social class, personal motivation, and even luck. Even so, Rawls insisted that a just society should find ways to reduce inequalities in areas where it can act. By offices and positions, in his second principle, Rawls meant especially the best jobs in private business and public employment. He said that these jobs should be open to everyone by the society providing a fair equality of opportunity. One way for a society to do this would be to eliminate discrimination. Another way would be to provide everyone easy access to education. Under the difference principle, Rawls favored maximizing the improvement of the least advantaged group in society. He would do this not only by providing fair equality of opportunity, but also by such possible ways as a guaranteed minimum income or minimum wage or his presence. Rawls agreed that this difference principle gave his theory of social justice a liberal character. Finally, Rawls ranked his principles of social justice in the order of their priority. The first principle, which is basic liberties, holds priority over the second principle. The first part of the second principle is fair equality of opportunity. holds priority over the second part or difference principle. But he believed that both the first and the second principles together are necessary for a just society. Rawls set up his thought experiment with several given systems of social justice principles. The task of the imaginary group members under the veil of ignorance was to choose one system of principle for their own society. So, what is veil of ignorance? Let's talk about it. So, veil of ignorance was all the people are biased by their situation. So, how can people agree on a social contract to govern how the world should work? Philosopher John Rawls suggests that we should imagine we sit behind a veil of ignorance that keeps us from knowing who we are and identifying with our personal circumstances. By being ignorant of our circumstances, we can more objectively consider how society should operate. In the veil of ignorance, there are two primary principles supplements Rawls' veil of ignorance, the liberty principle and the difference principle. So according to the liberty principle, the social contract should try to ensure that everyone enjoys the maximum liberty possible without intruding upon the freedom of others. While according to the difference principle, the social contract should guarantee that everyone an equal opportunity to prosper. In other words, if there are any social or economic differences in the social contract, they should keep those who are the worst off, and any advantages in the contract should be available to everyone. So according to Rawls, approaching those issues through a veil of ignorance and applying these principles can help us decide more fairly how the rules of society should be structured. And fairness, as Rawls and many others believe, is the essence of justice. By making the choice of Rawls, the fictional persons in the experiment, using their powers of reason and logic, would first have to decide what most people in most societies want. Rawls reasoned that rational human beings would choose four things, which he called the primary goods. So the first, wealth and income; the second, rights and liberties; and the third, opportunities for advancement; and last, the self-respect. In the next, the participants would have to decide how a society should go about justly distributing these primary goods among its people, clearly designing economic, political, and social institutions that favor the most advantaged members of the society would not be justice for all. On the other hand, the members of the experiment group would rationally agree that equal rights and liberties, opportunities, and self-respect for all would be just. But how about everyone having equal wealth and income? Rawls was sure that parties would reasonably conclude that some, or but not extreme, inequality of wealth and income is necessary in just society. Entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders should be rewarded for working to improve the economy and wealth of the society. Then, how should wealth and income be distributed in just society if not equally or skewed toward the rich? Again, using the reason and logic, Rawls argued the imaginary parties would adopt the philosophers called the maximum to minimum rule. Under this rule, the best choice is the highest minimum. In the example above, the best choice under the maximum rule would be Society A, which has the highest minimum. Those earning the average wage and above are doing pretty well as well. Society B, with its a higher average wage, benefits those in the middle and at the top income levels, but largely ignores those at the bottom. This is the flaw of the average utility social justice system, according to Rawls. Similarly, Rawls believed the person in his experiment would rationally choose principles of social justice that maximize benefits for the least advantaged. The individuals under the veil of ignorance do not know what position they really occupy in their society. Any one of them might be Bill Gates or an unemployed high school dropout.